Howdy, BHRCers. You can find every episode of Why People on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcast content. On this Why People episode number 30, we'll chat with Lauren Dunn, Chief People Officer at WIS, who has a really cool background and really cool story, and we're looking forward to get into it. Stay tuned. All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Why People, a Boston HR Council podcast production. For those new listeners, the BHRC is one of the largest HR and people executive communities in the world at just under 1,500 HR and people executive council members. Before we dive in, we'd like to introduce co-founder of the BHRC and co-host of Why People, Paul Roberts.
Thank you, Sean. Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to hear more about Mrs. Lauren Dunn's story today.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. And I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. It is a first for us here on Why People. I personally met Lauren in New Jersey. She is a part of a sister community to the Boston HR Council, the New Jersey HR Council. Recently, Lauren has found herself living in the Boston area, so she's now part of both groups. But Lauren Dunn, Chief People Officer at WIS, thanks for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting. And Sean, especially to you, just having you as a cohort in this new journey that I've been on with my family and with WIS has been great. So couldn't be more thankful to have found you and Chip down at New Jersey HR Council and now to be talking to you and Paul today. So really appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course. And be careful what you wish for. My grandmother always said you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around with most. So yeah, we'll just be careful on that one. But it's really cool, Lauren, and you've listened to a few of these, so the Why People kind of cadence is always the same. We are just so fascinated by the people leading the people in HR functions at some of the leading organizations. Really started in the Northeast, and now it's across the country. So we're just fascinated by the commonalities, but also the differences. So to start there, if you could, let's go back as far back as you want and tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe kind of what rooted you towards this profession.
Sure. So I grew up in, which it is officially now per Governor Murphy, Central New Jersey. So I grew up in Middlesex County, New Jersey. I now live in Middlesex County, Massachusetts. Very interesting, but largely grew up pretty active. I was a dancer and a soccer player and pretty shy, I think, when I started out in, those sort of activities at like 3 and 5, but just really active in all areas, really active in school and academics and student council, and certainly growing up a little bit more, what I would say humble beginnings, blue collar area in the country. I found myself knowing that I wanted my first car and had to start working at, 15 and a half. And I really wanted to work. Like, I love working. It's a passion for sure. It always has been. So I found my first job sans a paper route. When there were newspapers, I did have a paper route. But post that, I worked at a party place called Discovery Zone, where I ran children's parties. You jump in the balls and slide on slides and make the pizza and the ice cream and do the whole thing. And I love that job. But I found myself one day showing up for work. By the way, first experience with drug testing. They did like the hair test back then. It was very progressive, I thought, for that time. And showed up one day and there was a lock on the door and I couldn't get in for my shift. I went home and there was a voicemail. Well, sorry, a message on the answering machine, because that's how long this was, saying the company's gone bankrupt. You don't have work today, but you don't have a job. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I end up sort of finding my way through friends to a TGI Fridays, and I was a host there. Oh gosh, this is a really funny story. I was actually just telling the story the other day to my brother. At the time, there was a lot of stereotypical people working at that Fridays, different types of folks, and they certainly liked you to seat like-minded individuals in their section. So you had the woman who said, I love families, give me all the families. And then the young man who said, give me all the young, good-looking girls, because they knew how they could make the most tips if they had the right people in their sections to service. And so I got really good as a hostess figuring out who should be sitting with whom. By the way, also the smoking and non-smoking sections were there. I'm really dating myself during this podcast now. But I got really good at figuring that out. And certainly they would tip me more the better I did at getting them tips. So I don't know, for some reason.
Who's that, Sean?
What is it? Who's it?
Where
am I
did that
on? Well, I haven't met your children yet. And you call them animals. So I'm not sure where I would quite say you yet.
The outdoor seating, probably where he.
Yeah, maybe the outdoor section.
Very fog that and this is good.
But yeah, it was fun. And found my way to Penn State through somebody I worked with there. Loved Penn State. Super excited for college football to be coming back for Penn State this Saturday. My flag's about to go up here in Massachusetts. Hopefully that doesn't get me in trouble over here. We'll see. But yeah, I worked through college. I danced through college, taught dance, and still found my way to restaurants and hospitality. Like I just loved, I think there is an element in restaurants that's the show, like the curtain comes up and the lights go up and the music's happening and there's this feel and this energy to the space and to who's sitting there, just like I saw at Fridays. And I really knew that I wanted to work in restaurants. My dad was pretty staunch advocate of not majoring in restaurant. So he said, you will go to business school. So I went to business school and majored in management and minored in Spanish so that I could use my Spanish throughout the industry if necessary. And yeah, found my first internship with a company called Hillstone Restaurant Group, which most people would know as Houston's. I think there used to be one in Boston. I don't know if it's there anymore.
That was a great spot.
Oh my gosh, great. And like beautiful, again, like family-run company. They sort of housed their art in the different locations. So even as a server there, you had to learn about the art. You had to learn about the recipes. Most people will refer to Houston's as like the place for training and boot camp for restaurants because their processes are just impeccable. But I worked at the Park Avenue location in New York City for a summer and cleaned a freezer and a sweatshirt and like really worked 12, 14-hour days in and out of New York and just grinded it out and learned a ton about myself and the business. And I just really knew that that's where I wanted to be. And I think it was people on both sides, right? People in the front of the house as your guests when you get to be a part of their special occasions and meet their families, but then also in the back of the house and your service staff. These are people that want to be actors or dancers or singers in New York, but they're doing this hustle to make their ends meet, or they're immigrants from other countries trying to be able to bring over other members of their families. So just stories everywhere, like you'd never run out of stories in a restaurant. That's for sure.
Well, this is really cool, Lauren. This is a great kind of start to the conversation. And a few things. Number one, the cool thing about doing a podcast, and even, we have a podcast channel on YouTube, but you can only see kind of the, our faces. I don't know if you could tell, but I won't speak for Paul, but I'm not necessarily the kind of person that goes to the restaurant for the arts. I'm more of the what's going to be served. So, but that's a cool spin on it. And then we did have a DZ, as it was referred to, a discovery zone here in beautiful Billerica, Massachusetts. Sorry to hear that that business didn't make it. And pretty interesting part of finding out how it didn't make it. I'm going to put you on the spot here. When you found out that it was no longer a business, was any part of you excited that you didn't have to work that day, or did you immediately go towards OMG? What am I going to do now?
Yeah, I was like devastated. I was like, what am I going to do? Like I had a shift. How am I supposed to do this? And again, I was trying to get a car, right? So my parents helped me out, but they're like, you want a car? You got to work. And so I always just knew. And I loved what I did. I loved working as a dance teacher. I loved working at Fridays, Houston's. I loved working at West. I think there was one moment in time, maybe during COVID, that I didn't love working so much, but I think the majority of the world could probably say that at that time, specifically HR professionals. Just a really tough time. But again, such a learning experience that I wouldn't change it for anything. And I don't really know why I like to work that much. I wish I did. I just happen to have that sort of work ethic. My husband does too. My kids do too, which is great living here in Concord because we have a lot of work to do on our yard. So it's been a lot of outside trimming of these vines with the thorns on them and trying to figure out what kind of wild things are growing out here. But it's been really fun. We're having a good time.
Well, thanks for bringing us all the way up to kind of college years, Lauren. And I don't think you should get too much smoke for having a Penn State flag.
Oh, good.
As a longtime college football fan, Boston College, love them, but they haven't been super prominent as of late. It's not a huge college football culture in the Boston area. I wish it was, but I think, we secretly kind of wish we had that State College kind of vibe where it's like, all right, let's go. It's football season.
We do. That's it. This is what we do. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I literally bought a flagpole and a bracket just on Sunday so that I could make sure I had the Penn State flag up in time for the game on Saturday. Yeah. And it stays up. Like, even if we lose, it stays up. Unless there's a holiday, I switch it out, put it back up. But yeah, so in college, like I said, worked at Houston's. I was also still dancing. And I know, one of the things you've talked about on this pod before is mentorship and who have sort of brought you along the way. I grew up dancing. I was definitely not the ballerina, though I'm tall. I was more of a tapper. And my studio didn't really focus a lot on tap dancing until my high school years when my mentor came to teach with us. And he told me, like, you can be pro. Like, why are you not believing in yourself? But I think it was the first time I really needed somebody to tell me that. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And so every summer, basically through college, I picked okay, I'm going to work an internship towards my career and then I'm going to dance. And then next year I'll go back to do an internship towards my career and then I'll dance. And so the summers that I wasn't working in New York, I was dancing or taking classes or conventions in and throughout New York as well. So, with that guidance and mentorship, I was able to, I was actually a paid dancer as a pre-professional tap dancer and really spent my junior year of college just dancing in shows and, kind of following my mentor, and he would keep introducing me to people and networking me with people. And ultimately I graduated college and I knew I wasn't going to, I didn't really want to be a struggling artist, I would say. Certainly tap even today is not the most appreciated of all the art forms, though I think it should be. And I'm always love when I see shows come up that feature tap. I'm like, oh yes, we're gonna get that resurgence. I know we're gonna get it. But it was a great time. And then I said I really want to focus on my career, and again, just making money and starting off my career. So I joined Houston's. I moved out to the West Coast and trained in the Santa Monica Houstons, moved to Bandera in Brentwood. And then I was down in a little restaurant called Cafe R&D in Fashion Island in Orange County. So I spent a couple of years out there training and working with them, and just felt, I knew I wanted to do recruiting for the restaurants and be in their HR department. But I think when you're a good operator, especially in the restaurant business, they want to keep you in operations because it's really hard to find good process-oriented people. And so Houston's definitely had a culture of transferring you around a lot, whether you liked it or not. And I was getting a little hesitant or a little worried that I was going to get moved somewhere in the middle of the country where I really didn't want to go. And so I took a moment and a breath. I said, I don't think this HR thing is going to work here. I don't really want to move. So I'm going to leave and travel. I'd never been out of the country. And so I took some time off. I went to New Zealand for a couple of months. I did the whole country top to bottom. Hiked volcanoes, lived in a van, just kind of did the thing. Tried to figure out, do I want to do this restaurant thing? Partner and I almost bought a restaurant there and did our own, entrepreneurial thing. We sort of decided against it. Came back here, similar journey down to Mexico, potential entrepreneurship opportunity with another friend down there, and just said, I don't know if that's really the thing. And decided ultimately to come back to New Jersey, where I found, again, another family-run company, much like Hillstone, a company called Harvest. And very similar, father and sibling, or father and their children, trying to figure out this private company and where they wanted to go. And at the time, I think they had 6 or 7 restaurants. And when I left, they had about 11. And now I think they're up to either 13 or 15. They have a catering arm. So really was able to kind of get my hands back in the business with a little bit more of that mom and pop feel, which I really, really like, that small business feel. And certainly after a couple of years as an operator, this is where I got my opportunity to grow into HR and people operations. And of course, read that magical book, Work Rules, which really helped me design on a restaurant budget what a people operations department looks like, being an HR person of one at the time. So really grateful for that family for giving me that opportunity. They definitely believed in everything that I was trying to do. And it was a great relationship. I think I was there for almost 10 years. So it was a great experience.
It's really neat, Lauren. And I have a bunch of questions, but I'll keep it to 3 so we can kind of keep the, learning about your journey here. One of my best friends in the world, an old college roommate and baseball teammate of mine, is a GM of a local restaurant group, and they roll him out to all of their new locations. He kind of gets them off the ground, and he comes back, and really cool job. And he's done an amazing thing for that group. And I won't name him because text me and say terrible things, but it's interesting because we've chatted about his role in the restaurant business is very unique in a lot of ways. And you mentioned some of them, but we've chatted about his role and, he, just kind of kicking around, my skills transfer into a different industry. And I said, sounds like you are doing a lot of different
Everything
at a very high level, at a very, specific part of the business, and with not a ton of resource and support. I would say that the whole world is looking for folks to be able to do that and lead like that. So I guess my question to you is, at what point, maybe it was at Penn State, maybe it was before, but at what point did you know that there was a people and HR function that could be, part of your career trajectory, could be something that you could lead? Like, that seems to be a realization that's different for everyone. Like, at what point did that get on your radar?
Yeah, when I decided I wanted to go to business school at Penn State, there was really 4 major tracks: accounting, finance, marketing, and management. My husband's the accounting and finance guy, and I'm not the numbers gal, so that wasn't going to be it. Despite having to take, at the time they called it the Core 4. So everyone at Smeal had to take the Core 4. So I had to get through those classes, but I definitely knew that wasn't where, I wasn't really motivated by money to be in the finance sector. The accounting was not for me. Just kind of too black and white, I suppose. And marketing, I do love marketing, and I do now at WIS get to work a ton with our marketing team, which I love. I'm definitely very creative and love that sort of thought process. So I did enjoy the marketing side a lot. But management was really the place, and I had a wonderful professor that just brought it to life. And the understanding of how the laws apply to the people, and both where they need to support the people but also protect the people. And I think that in HR, again, HR traditionally at that time, you were always thinking about, like, the law is the baseline. Like, as long as we do the law, follow the law, it's fine. And that's what we have to do. But now, again, thinking forward, to people operations, as we all now call it, it's what can we do? Like, the law is just the bottom of the base. Like, so how do we do more? How do we do above that? And how do we bring things to our people that are going to make them, perform at a higher level at work and enjoy their work? Again, I just happen to enjoy work. And maybe I happen to pick places that were great places to work and find the right people to work with. But not everybody can do that. And not every company cares whether you like the people you work with or you enjoy your job. They just want you to execute. But at the end of the day, if the people aren't executing at a high level, the business isn't going to go anywhere, right? A business is just a collection of people. So how do we make them work better together? And that's in anything. It's in a community. It's in an entrepreneurial, endeavor. And again, restaurants and hospitality, I love hearing the story about your friend, because I remember having those moments of, how am I going to get out of here? I met my husband and he wants to have a family. And I said, well, how am I going to have this family? I work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. How am I going to do this? Because it's an all in. The restaurants, I used to call them my babies. The restaurants are your babies. The people are, I'd say I have 600 babies, but how am I going to do this thing? And who's going to entrust me, this restaurant girl, right? But I had a degree in human resources management and org structure from Penn State, right? I had studied the core business function. So it's not that I was doing it to exactly what your friend was, right? You're running a P&L of a restaurant or multiple. So you're applying those finance skills. You're applying those. In some cases, you are your in-house accountant. In some cases, you're your only marketing team. So you're really applying all the principles in this entrepreneurial function. And if you have a group behind you, like your friend, it's that much easier because, again, now you have this collection of people and this energy pushing the engine. So yeah, I think it just was early on in school, and then being able to apply those different principles. And, eventually with Harvest, as much as I loved working there, I knew I wanted to have a family. And so I started to seek, alternate industries that wouldn't have me working so much, especially on the weekends and holidays and things like that. And I found a great real estate company who also family run, father to sibling sort of handoff. So you see the trend. I keep kind of finding these bigger than, a mom and pop shop, but certainly that same family energy and family dynamic is there, which I really like to understand the psychology of how people work together, and specifically families working together is probably the most interesting, at least from what I've seen, and was, found Harvard grad who was my mentor at that time and really ushered me in as the director of people there and gave me, again, free rein to sort of paint. Like, what you want to do. We have the same, mindset. We know what we want to do for this company. And how do we do it? And then COVID hit. You go quickly from being an HR person of one to an HR person, a tech person, and a corporate administrative person of one from afar with an 8-month-old. So it's funny, I actually have a great photo of my 8-month-old son, who's now almost 5, this 5 or 6 computers, because unfortunately I had to, start letting some people go through the time. 5 or 6 computers, and I'm just laying on the floor with him next to me, shutting down all the computers and sending them back and forth to the office. And it was just, sometimes I think about that time and I'm grateful that I spent a lot of it with my son, more than I would have if I was in office. But how do you do all those jobs at the same time? But it's the restaurant background and having to juggle all these different pieces I guess I'm better in chaos for some reason. So
yeah, that's it. And Lauren, thanks for sharing. Right. And it's funny, to your point, and I go to my friends' restaurants a lot and I bring my whole family. And again, this dynamic is different, and I don't think it's right or wrong, but he's the boss. He's the number one, but he's running around. He's got the earpiece in, and I grab him once in a while. I'm like, hey, not everyone sweats this hard when they're at work, I promise you. Right. So and that's not me being pejorative. It's me saying, on our previous conversation, these are pretty amazing skills and you're doing a whole lot of them at once. So, well,
how do you say that? Sorry to interrupt, Sean, but if I had to pick one common theme from all these elite CPOs and CHROs we've had the pleasure of getting to know, was that they all thrive in chaos. It's this amazing commonality that somehow comes out in conversations that that's when your best stuff happens.
That's stuff. Yep, absolutely. And again, because I think any people problem or people issue might be a crisis to them, even if it's not. And so that's where we have to put our HR hats on or people ops hats on and be like, wait, okay, there's a process here and there's a plan and it's not a crisis. My dad always used to say this to his kid, scale, I get upset, scale of 1 to 10. Where is it? Are you 10? You're 1, right? In the hospital, the little faces, and you pick, are you here or are you here on the pain scale? But sometimes people need someone to say, okay, yes, we know we have something going on here, but we're here. So let's come here, start together, and then, figure out how to move it along. So, but it is. I think I definitely blame the restaurant training because something happens at all times. Customer service is very interesting. And by the way, I bring so much of that to what I do now with, and I have a team of 8 that work with me, and a lot of them are fresh out of school. And the thing I speak to them a lot about is that these are our clients are our employees. So we're bringing that same customer service mindset to the people. I know it's probably all over LinkedIn, but Unreasonable Hospitality, most recent book that came out. I'm going to forget his name off the top of my head, but Christina Tosi's husband. I felt like I was reliving my days in New York because I happened to work at the Houstons up the street from Blue Smoke, and we're probably around the same age. And I think I borrowed a bag-in-the-box soda from Blue Smoke once, and I was so like green that I didn't realize how heavy that thing was going to be, and I didn't bring a cart, and so I'm like walking down Park Ave with a bag-in-the-box soda trying to get back to the Houstons. But anyway, reading that book, all of those principles, the Dreamweaver, listening to the guests, how do you make them happy? We do the same thing at West. It's not just who's having a baby or who's getting married, it's who just became a grandfather and is really excited. And let's like celebrate that for them. Who just closed on a house, and let's make sure we celebrate that for them. And it's not just the gifts and that, but it's just paying attention and being so clued in. It's like that movie Avatar with like the roots of the trees, and it all kind of connects to each other. Like if we can figure that out in business, like whatever you're doing, you're going to be successful. But treat people that, that's, to me, that's elevating the employee experience, right? Making it feel like something that's not work. Yeah. I don't want to go to work and feel like it's work. I want to go to work and have fun, and enjoy my day.
Well,
so
it's really cool, Lauren. And when we were doing the prep for this podcast and doing our research and all that fun stuff, Paul, said to me, he said, do you think she's read Unreasonable Hospitality? So Will Gardner, I pronounce his name, I don't know, but the cool part is Paul and I won't say we were forced to read it, but it was part of an executive offsite for the leadership team at our firm, Lofton. So we read it. I went a step further and actually went to 11 Madison Park and brought a friend. I did not get the disclaimer that it had changed to a vegan restaurant. Again, I'm a different stroke for different folks, no judge here, but for our YouTube viewers, they'll tell you don't probably look like a vegan guy, but that place was amazing. And to your point, it made you feel amazing. I couldn't tell you what was on the menu. It was so exquisite, but my goodness, was it tasty? Did I feel like I was the only person in that restaurant? Like I was, and all of their employees like just presented as people that loved where they were. So there's something to it.
Absolutely. It's magic. Like it really is. And there's a great, I'm giving Christina Tosi all the shout outs in the world. Maybe she'll send me some free milk bar. But Christina Tosi has a great TED Talk where she talks about the magic. And like for her, it's bringing these, iconic flavors of her childhood in this mishmash way into crack pie or the compost cookie or whatever this thing is, right? But she just lives in her creativity and lets that stuff come out, and it creates magic for us when we bite into that cookie. It's the same thing when you're sitting at the table and someone refills your wine glass before you were even knowing that you needed it, right? Or having this little table for your purse, and you're like, wait, where do I put my, oh no, there's this like little seat for your purse. You just put it on the seat. Like, I didn't know, right? And I didn't, growing up where I grew up in New Jersey, we went out to eat maybe once a month. And so for me, there's always something so magical about getting dressed up and seeing that wine list of all these names of places that I've never been. And it wasn't the wine, right? It was like, where is Chateau Yquem? Like, I don't know where that is. And what is it all about? And how do they make it? And so it was just so curious, such a curious and interesting place, and never lacking something to learn about, to me. And I, my husband and I are both still really into food and wine, and we love to go out. And it's a wonderful experience now, not being an operator, because I think I used to go out and just look for typos on the menu and light bulbs out because I just was trained to like constantly be looking at things. Now I do that in my space at West instead. What's our training facility looking like, and what's happening over here, and why are those desks looking like that, and should we face at this angle? And and there's still a physicality to that feel that you're creating. But at West, for me now, it's more about listening and paying attention to people and really understanding, the folks. And again, the mentorship angle in all of this, specifically in restaurants, but even now, working for accountants, is I don't think people see themselves beyond who they are like today. And as HR leaders and people ops leaders, we have to be able to see what they can't see in themselves. A dishwasher who thinks they'll be a dishwasher forever, that's not the case. If you do the right things and you learn and someone believes in you, I've seen dishwashers become sous chefs. I have a green team, some of which started in completely different focuses in HR, strictly recruiting, and are now certified and more of a generalist and still learning. And so if you can see beyond someone like that, I just think that's so powerful, and again, helps the business grow as the people grow. So,
well, Lauren, thanks for indulging me on my tangent a little bit. This is in podcasting, this is the magic, right? The tangent.
That's it.
But so, we get about 15 minutes left here, and where we're at right now is essentially you've taken us all the way through to you actually formalize people leadership, right? You've kind of embarked on the family-owned realty business, and you're leading their people and talent function. I'd love to kind of spend the next kind of segment here going from that point in time until and this is cool because you're a recent chief people officer, right? I believe you made that promotion in 2023. So really cool for our audience who spans the journey on where they are in their kind of professional path to understand kind of how you got there and how you thought about it. But help us understand from joining the realty group, leading their people and talent function, and what happened externally and then maybe internally in your own mind strategically to get you to a place that you're a C-suite leader leading this function as part of a broader business strategy for your team. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So oddly enough, again, so much of life is kismet, I think. And a friend of mine that I grew up with, who now is on my team, was doing some recruiting for me on the administrative side at the realty company. He had introduced me to Kevin Kurtz, who is one of the partners at WIS. He leads the recruiting function at WIS. And Kevin reached out to me and said, I have this great HR position. There's a couple people, but you're the only one that I would see doing this. And you have to meet Amanda Dominguez. Amanda Dominguez is now our chief operating officer. And really my, mentor, peer, boss, but also mentor. She's so many things to me. She just had a baby yesterday, her third little one. So we're so excited for her. But Kevin reaches out. I meet Kevin, I meet with Amanda, I meet with the greater leadership team. And it was a no-brainer, I think, once I started talking to Amanda, that she and I were just so aligned. I largely spent the majority of my career in male-dominated industries, restaurants, realty. And so to be, fully aligned with this female leadership presence in Amanda was just so refreshing. And I couldn't wait to get started. I also happened to be 6 months pregnant interviewing at the time. So although they wanted me to start post-tax season, I said, well, I'm having a baby on April 9th. So actually, I'm going to start now. And it was a slow start. WIS is not the place to run and implement. And I certainly had been in that pace for a long time in my career. Just, again, real-time function in restaurant. Everything happens really quickly. Same thing in the real estate world. Here it was, and Amanda was a great mentor here for me, was to say, slow down. You don't have to run around and tell everybody who you are and what you're going to do, what your plans are. Just ease in, feel, learn, watch, observe, and we'll get there. And so I've only been here 3.5 years. I think we'll be 4 years in the winter. And I just really tried to follow that lead. My nature, again, is to drive and to move. I never really rest on anything. Even if we have a good function, I'm let's review it. Let's take another look. Let's rewrite it. If it's not broken, we don't have to fix it. But let's just make sure there's nothing else that we need to tweak or do. I practiced yoga. I don't get to as much anymore. Hopefully I can pick it up now that I'm here again. But one of the things I love about yoga, it's all these fine adjustments. Once you get into the practice, it's not about running the race from here to there. It's these little tiny increments over time. And I feel that's what I've been able to apply at WIS since I've been there. It's just, the culture at WIS is so amazing. And that I found in my career has been the hardest thing to achieve. Get everybody speaking the same language. We're all rowing in the same direction. At WIS, that was already there. It's the other things. It's those processes, again, where I kind of came from and the things that I'm really good at to bring to the different functions. And then how do you go beyond? So right now I'm focusing a lot of my energy in the performance space, really defining what performance is, for an accountant at WIS and in accounting in general. For so long, the industry has looked at, how many hours a week you work. And I think most of us learned through COVID and just in general that it's not about the time sitting in the chair. Like, it's not the 9 to 5 anymore. We have this technology. We can work whenever we need. And if you're efficient and can do things in less time, like, we should be rewarding people for that, right? Or giving them more things to do or greater things to achieve if it's not taking them that long. So we're really trying to figure that out. And it is technical skills, but it's also those essential skills, as leaders in whatever form that might be at WIS. So I'm spending a lot of time there at the moment. But again, just really at some point in the chief people officer area or in any leadership capacity, it becomes about your team now. So how do you keep bringing them up with you and creating their version of whatever their success is? I never was really like aiming for a title or to, become a leader of this team at WIS. I just want to do great work and I want WIS to be successful. And so having the ability to, again, paint, like I'll never forget this one meeting where one of our partners said, just let Dunn paint, give her the canvas, let her paint. And so that for me has always been the forks. Give me the canvas and let me paint. And you could tell me what colors you like and you don't like and what parameters you like and you don't like, and hold me back if I go too far. But really, it's been about building what I think the future of the company, should look like internally from a people ops standpoint, and certainly having that freedom and slowing down and not being, working all the time, having definitely a better work-life balance, being able to show up for my kids. And, even this move up here for my husband to be able to have, success in his career and be able to, provide a great upbringing and some wonderful schools for my children is excellent. So it's been an interesting time for sure. And listen, definitely with that title, Sean, I think we talked about it last time. There's a lot of like, I'm this title now. What am I supposed to do? That imposter syndrome kind of kicks in. I sort of started working extra hard and longer hours. Like everything I just said, I did the complete opposite. I can't even follow my own advice because you have this thing, like this crown or whatever that you're trying to fit into. And then, I don't know, probably in the last couple months, I was like, I'm doing the same work, and I'm doing great work. So it shouldn't really matter. But I think managing your own internal thoughts when it comes to that kind of stuff is pretty difficult. But you get used to it. You grow into it, right? Yeah. That nobody's ready for the thing. It's like parenthood. You just grow into it, right?
Well, I really appreciate you sharing kind of that journey internally and externally. And it's funny, Laura, when we were prepping for this, I was reviewing my notes from the conversations we've had. And like most great leaders, that you've kind of modestly undersold yourself a little bit in the sense that I really loved what we chatted about last time. You said we work in this age-old industry. Accounting's been around forever, right? CPA firms have been around forever. Typically, the people that work for these firms have been there for a long time. And you're kind of challenging, like, I want to make WIS the best place to be an accountant in the world. And I want to listen to the people that work there to learn what that means. And, my closest childhood friend here in Billerica is a partner at a CPA firm here locally. And so after we chatted, I asked her that question. She kind of looked at me like, why, what's that a trick answer? I said, no, I talked to one of my friends, like, I'm just curious what your answer is. Right. And I think, it's not to generalize, but I think folks are a little bit kind of guarded, right? That's the nature of the business and it's very kind of focused. But you've done such a great job doing that at WIS. Just even someone watching, somewhat from afar, But you mentioned let Dunn paint. You have a painting in your office, Liz. And I'm not smart enough to remember. I know it's raining. I believe there is a young girl in the photo. Maybe she's holding a balloon. It's almost like she's having a great time in the rain. And the connection between accountants having a great time accounting, like we've chatted about that. So I'm going deep here, but tell the audience a little bit about that, because I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, it's and I didn't want to bring it here to Massachusetts because I am going to be going back to New Jersey at some cadence once I can figure it out with childcare and such. And so I didn't want to leave my office like empty with like as if I left. So I have to figure out something else for here probably. But it's a painting called "Singing in the Rain," and there's sort of an angry looking accountant with the briefcase with kind of a scowl on. And then a young girl, the angry accountant's got the umbrella because it is raining. It's colored raining. So the angry accountant's got the umbrella, he's scowling, trying to run through the colored rain. Meanwhile, the little girl who's in bright Technicolor has her hands open and her mouth open, and she's enjoying the colored rain. So it's singing in the colored rain. And being a tap dancer and, growing up with Gene Kelly, and who was like my childhood, idol, and we could talk about all of those people some other time. But Gene Kelly definitely was my guy when I was a kid. So I liked that connection as well. But it's really about that. Like, we want the people at WIS to be the little girls singing in the colored rain, enjoying their life when they're not super busy, hopefully enjoying their time when they're at WIS. And the only way we can do that is to think about them as whole people, mind, body, spirit, emotional connection, career progression, career development, performance. Who are they? What do they want out of their life with us here and in general? And so if we can figure out what those programs are to make them feel better. I mean, we do things like bring in chiropractic sessions and IV therapy, and we're trying so many different things. We have mental health and wellness seminars that happen all the time. We've got a great DEI function. We're doing some upscaling on technology this year. So it's really all over the board, but that's who people are. We all have different wants and needs. And so if we can get into, that understanding of each of our people, all 300 something of them, then we can create these programs that make them feel good. And if you feel good, you're going to perform well. If you're stressed out, you're not performing. And that's not just stress like I feel stressed. That's, I'm slumping because of my back, because I've been like this all day, or because I don't have childcare. I feel like I have to be in work at a certain time, and my husband has to be at this. All of that stuff creates noise that you can't focus and you can't perform. And so we're really in the business of trying to figure that out, and that's the employee experience.
I feel like you're kind of calling me out here.
No, I'm calling myself out. I'm the worst. I got to get back to that yoga. I'm telling you.
And hear my mom, God rest her soul, saying, "Shawnee boy, shoulders back, shoulders back."
I know. It's so hard. Hard.
Well, this is really cool. We got a few minutes left here, Lauren. We always kind of finish on like this futuristic posture of how we're thinking about the work, right? And so, question one, tell us a little bit about, I consider you a very futuristic person in general relative to work and how we think about work, but tell me how you're thinking about the work in your world as it relates to kind of moving into the future. I know you've already touched on a little bit of it, but how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you can't think future forward without talking about AI and how to apply, new technologies to everything we do. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around a lot of that. I'd say in our function at WIS, probably that pinnacle of the pyramid of what we're trying to achieve at People Ops is definitely that, having a really solid, real-time data analytics function that's feeding us all this information. We've invested pretty heavily at WIS over the last couple of years in that data, tech innovation side. So really excited to see what we're doing there. Certainly, first it's in the business and the accounting function, and then it'll kind of piece its way back up into operations. But, And by the way, this isn't really new, right? Like, this is what Laszlo Bach and the invention of the People Ops function really focused on was, surveying your people, looking at that data, understanding why people are leaving, and putting new policies and practices in together to keep them, longer and increase that retention, decrease turnover, all those things. So that's not new, but certainly the application of AI and becoming more efficient and where we could use it, I think is really important. Beyond that, for me, it's the performance piece. Like, I've been working really hard with some external consultants, just again on identifying the behaviors of our people, how they're wired, why they are and behave the way they do. So really that more psychological understanding of folks on an individual level, and then how to create development plans and coaching to be able to get them to another level. And again, some people are very happy coming in and status quo, this is what I do, and that's wonderful. I think, but those people that really want to succeed, the sky is the limit, and when you're in a more entrepreneurial type firm like WIS, there's no ceiling. And I say this to my team a lot. I've got a team largely of females, one male on the team, but there's no, there's seats at the table for everybody. So it's not a competition. One isn't better than the other. We're all different, and you all have strengths and opportunities in different areas. And so if you want to lead the L&D function, let's build it out. Let's build it together. And absolutely, let's do that. If you want to build the performance piece, let's do that. Let's do it together. So I think, making sure that people, and by the way, if WIS isn't the place for you forever to succeed and hit your goals, let's find a new place, because we want people to succeed in wherever they're going to be. And certainly we want them to be with us, but, under full understanding that it's an employee-employer relationship, and some relationships just don't work, and that's okay, and if you go seek another one and you don't like it and you want to come back to us, that's great too, so.
Lauren, this has been really, really cool. Really enjoyed spending the time with you today. Welcome to the Boston HR Council. And of course, love you with the New Jersey HR Council, but we had a blast today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thanks, Lauren.